Hello, everybody. This is our weekly paper. Title is High Heritability of Coral Calcification Rates and Evolutionary Potential Under Ocean Acidification. So I just want to give a quick overview of the context of this paper so you can understand it details a little bit better as you're reading through it. So as we discussed in lecture, the ocean is undergoing acidification as a result of increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Burning of fossil fuels releases CO2 into the atmosphere, and at least a quarter of that, maybe a third of it, is dissolved into the ocean, causing acidification, which is the reduction in pH of the ocean water. Since the Industrial Revolution, the ocean has absorbed, I think, over 500 billion tons of carbon dioxide. And at the moment, it's absorbing another 20 tons, over 20, 30 tons every day. And this CO2 makes the ocean more acidic or less alkaline. And in the last 200 years, it's become about 30% more acidic. And this increase is faster than has happened at any time during the last 50 million years. And this is for alarm because that increased pH pulls carbonate out of the water, which makes it harder for organisms to build their hard shells and causes shells to dissolve. And you can see that some species are struggling under this new chemistry. For example, sea butterfly shells in the Antarctic have been seen dissolving. You look at them under a scope and you can see pits in the shells as they're becoming weakened. So one worry is that as this continues, corals will lose the ability to make their calcium carbonate homes, the coral reef rock that houses their bodies. And the reefs that do exist might become eroded. So this is seen to be an enormous problem that needs to be solved because for many reasons. For example, a fourth of all marine biodiversity is found in coral reefs, and they provide ecosystem services worth billions of dollars every year, including providing food for many people, hundreds of millions. And the worst case scenario is that ocean acidification by itself, even without warming of the water, would be a catastrophe for coral reefs worldwide, because it would cause mass extinctions of species and loss of reefs in warm waters everywhere. But that prediction assumes that corals are not capable of evolving in response to the acidification to become adapted to the lower pH waters. So a hot topic of research right now is the question, will they be able to evolve to adapt to the drop in pH expected over the next century? So will they? Well, remember from the lecture, there are three requirements for evolution by natural selection or artificial selection. The first is variation. The second is inheritance of that variation. And the third is that fitness is different in different variants. So are those three criterion met? Well, there's no question about point three. There will be fitness consequences of acidification. In fact, there are right now. The only question is there variation in the coral populations and tolerance of that acidification? Are there some coral individuals who can continue to calcify under lower pH? And do those corals pass on their tolerance to their offspring? Is that tolerance heritable? That's the big question. So that's the major unknown at present and a major topic of research, which is very easy to do in the lab. So if corals do have heritable variation in acidification tolerance, then those variants that can continue to undergo calcification will have a higher fitness in the future ocean and might increase in frequency in populations until they replace the individuals with lower tolerance. So that would result in evolution of greater adaptation to the lower pH in general in the ocean. And that would mean that the coral populations can survive and respond by increasing their tolerance, which they pass on to their offspring. All right, so there's no doubt whatsoever that corals do have some heritable variation in acidification tolerance. Okay. Question is whether they can evolve the necessary tolerance in the short amount of time they need to do so. So this paper tries to answer that question in a lab experiment in which the researchers bubble CO2 gas into the aquarium tanks in 8 species of Hawaiian corals that they collected in 5 or 6 locations in Hawaii. And here I have an image search result for one of those species. So they bubble CO2 gas and monitor the decrease in pH in the aquariums down to levels that are expected to over the next century. And they do this over several months. Okay, so will at least some of the corals continue to calcify over the long term under that acidification expected over the next 100 years in these tanks? If so, will they pass on that ability to their offspring? If they do, then that would be very good news, wouldn't it? Read the paper and find out. All right, we'll see you next time.